Next slide. The period of time between when the bill was heard in committee. If this was the only bill that anybody had to pass in the Texas House, then the allegation that I killed it by bottling it up in committee would make sense, but it wasn't. We have to pass a budget, and we have to pass sunset legislation. The Insurance Commission, the Texas Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety, the Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas Youth Commission, all of those agencies were up for sunset review in this legislative session because the legislature in the House was so far behind because of the new speaker, the late appointment of the chairman. The sunset legislation was also behind. So certainly in a situation where the Democrats, we not only had to have some Democrat votes to pass voter ID, we had to have some Democrat votes to pass anything. And we have to pass a budget, or we're going to be back in special session. We have to pass these sunset bills, or the agencies actually disappear. So there were some priorities that had to be passed before we brought the voter ID bill to the floor to prevent an explosion that would push us into a regular session. And that was a concern expressed by conversations I had with the leadership across the board, a desire to avoid a special session. And then next slide, 4/28/2009. This is a press release. This is a press release from the Republican Party of Texas. I want to talk about this. 71 Republicans signed the following statement of principles. Representative Larry Taylor, the chairman of the Republican caucus, Kelly Hancock, came to me with the idea of a list in support of principles. I was fine with that particular proposal. I actually thought it helped because it allowed these 71 members to go on the record in favor of the party's preferred, the Betty Brown bill, the party's preferred version of the voter ID bill, so that they could go on the record in favor before they then shifted over to support my version of the bill in order to get the marginal votes on the House floor. And I actually participated in drafting the language. When you see here that one of the principles is to ensure a valid photo identification, this is the only one I couldn't give them. I couldn't give them that one. Betty Brown didn't give them that one. When we had 87 votes, Nary Denny didn't give them that. I couldn't give them that with 75 Republicans on the House floor, 2 of which had voted against this bill in the prior session. But I could give them that took effect at the next possible uniform election date. Instead of immediate effect, I asked them to change it to the next possible uniform election date, taking into consideration all the procedural issues we talked about. And to be free of any registration requirements such as same-day voter registration, no problem. Increased criminal penalties for voter fraud or registration, something my bill did that the Betty Brown bill did not do. And it says we are all strongly encouraging Chairman Todd Smith and other Republicans on the Elections Committee to present a bill that protects the integrity of the election process, is fully implemented the next possible uniform election date, ensures reasonable period of advanced registration, all of which was fine, and I participated in the development and even the language in this particular document. I didn't sign it, not because I didn't have a 10-year history of voting in favor of this stuff, but because my job in this legislative session was to develop a bill that would get the votes and pass on the House floor, and I had done that. And so I had to be committed to and an advocate for that form of the legislation. Next slide. And then my local chairman got involved on the same day. So when this state party document came out that I had been involved in and had no problem with, on the very same day, we got a document that was distributed to a lot of my Republican voters across Tarrant County that resulted in a lot of angry mail to me that takes it a little step further. She says, Tarrant County has one of their own at the head of this debate. Representative Todd Smith chairs the Elections Committee of the Texas House and is crafting a voter ID bill. Representative Smith has publicly suggested waiting 4 years to implement the bill and has even considered allowing people to register and vote on Election Day. Simply not true. I never, ever considered allowing people to register and vote on Election Day because I am smart enough to know that I lose every Republican vote with that proposal. And my job was to try to get 76, 77, or 78 so I could pass the friggin' bill. And so that's the last thing I would have supported or proposed. What I did do was to have a hearing on same-day voter registration because in this environment I had a hearing on any bill that any member of the legislature, Republican or Democrat, wished it wasn't environment making anybody mad by refusing to even have a hearing on their legislation. But the only way I could pass this bill is to take the 71 votes in favor of a hard vote and get them to make the small additional changes I needed to make to get the marginal votes and have everybody get behind that version. That was the only way it was ever going to pass. And when I had my own party leadership disseminating information that was not true, that inflamed primary Republican voters in this county,